When I was a boy, I loved to sketch and draw. Michelangelo was my favorite artist. In my freshman year of high school, I had to write a paper on him, and I became obsessed with his story, the ever-tortured artist. At the time, I saw him as the underdog of the Renaissance. Da Vinci had the Mona Lisa, arguably the most famous artwork of all time. Looking back now, it was silly to think of Michelangelo as an underdog. He's also one of the most famous artists in history, one of the Ninja Turtles, the man behind the Sistine Chapel ceiling, and the sculptor of David. He was one of the reasons I pursued a career in the arts, in the creative field. Now, as an adult, I've achieved one of my goals. I became a creative professional. I live from this, from the ideas that I build in my mind. This is what feeds me. And almost in a full circle moment, my work allowed me to visit Italy. I walked the same streets of Florence. I saw the marble he shaped with his own hands. I saw his frescoes in the Vatican, the creation of Adam, the Last Judgment. The pieces that inspired me to make art of my own, in a way, had called to me all these years, leading me to witness them in person. Only then can I truly appreciate their complexity, their details, and how incredibly difficult it must have been to complete. Once I knew we were going to Italy, I decided to commit to prepping for it. I started taking Duolingo lessons. For 100 days, I practiced basic phrases and vocab until the day finally came to test my skills. We arrived in Venezia. The air was humid. The sun had already gone down, but it still felt warm. The air carried a musk of seawater. We made it out of the airport, and I was determined to get us a hotel without speaking a single word of English. I walked up to the boat taxi driver, and my brain froze. I realized that in 100 days of practice, I never bothered to learn how to say hotel in Italian. The guy realized I was struggling, and in English, he asked me if I was looking for a taxi to the main island of Venice. I replied, "Sì, grazie mille," and after showing him the hotel on my phone, he pointed me to the boat I needed to take. After that, my Italian started to loosen up a bit. By the end of the trip, I was able to hold a conversation, granted not a very long one, with one of our taxi drivers in Rome, and he was telling me about how this year the tourist season was starting to pick back up after COVID, and that in 2025, the year of the Jubilee, it would definitely surge. One of the things that struck me about Venice was how small the island was. On the second day, we simply wandered around aimlessly, and after about 45 minutes, we had already made it to the other side. Despite the crowds, it was surprisingly peaceful. Since the main island was only accessible by boat, there were no cars or mopeds to worry about. Everyone was simply walking, exploring. I was absorbing the history of the place, the narrow alleyways, the twists, the turns, the dead ends. It was like a massive maze, but one that always felt approachable. And no matter how lost you thought you were, there were always large signs pointing you towards the nearest landmark. Piazza San Marco, the Ponte di Rialto, and the Basilica Santa Maria. The second you step out of the train station in Rome, you're overwhelmed by the amount of scents. Food, cigarettes, designer perfumes. Roma Termini isn't just a train station, it's a multi-level shopping mall, packed with every kind of store that you can imagine. The sheer number of people was insane. It felt like the first time I had ever seen the ocean. Waves of people moving in every direction, upstairs, downstairs, in and out of the building. Once you step outside, the crowdedness doesn't let up. You're hit with the sounds of mopeds and tiny cars whizzing by, weaving in and out of traffic. The traffic signs feel more like suggestions as opposed to laws. After a few blocks, the sidewalks finally felt more breathable. That was when I started taking in the beauty of Rome. The structures here are old, hundreds and even thousands of years. The ancient gladiators fought in this very arena. Julius Caesar was buried beneath this dirt. The history of this place, it's tangible. You can feel it vibrating beneath each stone that makes up the pathways. As I walked through the streets, I found myself constantly looking upwards, just simply in awe of the architecture. This trip ended up having a bit of a Goldilocks structure for us. We ended up in Florence, our happy middle ground between Venice and Rome. There were still plenty of tourists and a bit of traffic, but it was way more relaxed than Rome. I never felt overstimulated or overwhelmed. The pace was slower. It felt natural just to stroll through the city. We ended up walking about 14 miles that first day, way more than we thought we had. Florence, or Firenze as they call it, was welcoming. It had history, but what drew me in the most was the art. This was the home of Michelangelo, my greatest inspiration. We got tickets to the Galleria dell'Accademica, and there he was, David, the shepherd, the lion hunter, the man who would go on to defeat Goliath. He stands at the end of a very long hallway, but even from the moment you turn the corner, you feel his presence. He's huge. As I got closer, I was stunned by the level of detail. His face, the curls in his hair, the veins in his arms. I thought back to the pictures I had seen as a child, the reference sketches I had made as a teenager for practice. It had all led me here, to this room. Hundreds of years after this piece of marble was carved, I was here, standing in front of it. Seeing these masterpieces in person, up close, made me appreciate them in a way that I never could, through books or screens. I could see the brushstrokes, the chisel marks, the sheer effort it took and genius poured into every piece. It reminded me of why I fell in love with art in the first place. As a kid, these works inspired me to pick up a pencil and draw. As an adult, they reaffirmed why I chose this path, to create, to express, and to build something lasting. This journey didn't just take me to Italy, it took me back to the reason I pursued art at all. And now more than ever, I feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be.